Okay, so extraneous, as we just discussed, means unnecessary. So that's what's going to happen in these problems. We're going to solve these problems, which are very similar to the problems we did yesterday, perhaps a tad more complicated. The difference is, whereas yesterday we only had one answer, today we're going to have two answers. But in all likelihood, one of those answers is not actually going to be an answer. So we're going to get two solutions, and then we have to check and see if either of our two solutions actually works in the equation. When you are doing this on your quiz, if you get to the point where you solve and you get two answers, but you don't check and get rid of the one that's extraneous, you're only going to get half credit. Because what you've done is you've given me two answers, when in fact there's only one. So please don't think that if I get the two solutions, that's enough, because that in these kinds of questions, it's not enough, and you'll know because the instructions will say to check for extraneous solutions. If the problem doesn't say check for extraneous solutions, then you don't have to. Please. All right, so step number one. Jillian, if you didn't like the word or whatever, you're going to hate the way I go through this problem. Okay, step number one, just like yesterday, is to isolate the radical. So what do we have to do here to isolate the radical?
Add 5.
So we're going to add 5 to both sides. So I get the square root of x plus 7 is equal to x plus 5.
Then you have to square it, or whatever.
Or excuse me. Step number two is to remove the radical sign by doing whatever the index is. That's the operation that you have to undertake. Whether it's squaring, cubing, whatever. In this case, it's squaring, so I'm going to square both sides. So on the left side, I get x plus 7. Here's where we start to deviate from yesterday's lesson. Yesterday, we only had one thing on the right side of the equation. So it was easy to square. Pretend it was 4. We would just square it. We would get 4 squared, which is 16. Now it's a little more complicated because we don't have just one term. We have a binomial. Which leads us to step number 3, which is to expand the binomial. So what I get is I get x plus 7. So this is going to be squared. And I'm going to expand the binomial. I'm going to make it x plus 5 times x plus 5. And when I have two binomials, the way I multiply them together is to use which method?
FOIL.
Use the FOIL method. So that gives me x plus 7 is equal to x squared plus 10x plus 25. If you feel the need to, please make sure that you write the word use FOIL.
Is this for step 3, expanded binomials?
Yep, this is all step 3. Can you see? Yes.
Wait, why did
That's
you
not why I
square
was
x?
asking if you can see.
Oh, wait, never mind. Wait, so you remove the square root sign and then you square the other side, right?
Right. You're also squaring this side. You square both sides.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
But the square root, ow. You just put x plus...
Well, when you square the square root of x plus 7, you end up with just x plus 7.
But it's already square rooted, so why did you put it at 2?
Because you're squaring it.
I added 2, but... I think...
Okay.
This
The
is
step is to set the equation equal to 0. What that means is anything on the left side of the equation is got to go to the right side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract x, and I'm going to subtract 7, and I'm going to do that from both sides. I'm going to subtract x, and I'm going to subtract 7. That gives me 0 over here. X squared 10x minus 1x is 9x.
At negative 18.
25 minus 7 is 18.
Yeah.
Guys in the back, you getting this down?
Yeah.
You're a guy.
Are you
So-
serious? What's wrong with
Move it, Gerard. I'm telling you, move it.
Okay.
Dude.
The next step is now we have a new binomial that we're going to factor. So what we're looking for are the factors of 18 that add up to 9. So now we do know that since both of my signs are positive, both of my factors are going to be positive. What numbers multiplied together give us 18, added together give us 9. This way? 6 and 3.
Wait, they have to add up to 9 and multiply by
2 18.
18.
Multiply them together to get 18.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Add them together to get 9. Okay, now, the second to last step is to solve these for x. In other words, what value is going to make each of those parentheses equal to 0? So if my factor is positive 6, my solution is negative 6. So one of my answers is that x equals negative 6. The second one of my answers is that x equals negative 3. Yes?
How do you get 9x from 10x minus 10x?
10x, think of them as puppies. If I have 10 puppies and I take away 1 puppy, how many puppies do I have left? 9. Because they don't have puppies, I have
What
none.
did you solve that?
Wow.
Why did you get that?
What value for x will make x plus 6 equals 0? In other words, x plus 6 equals 0.
So it is a.
Subtract 6 from both sides. I get that x is equal to negative 6.
Oh, so it's just. The opposite.
That's right. Jamiri, is that a question or are you just stretching? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so these are my two answers, but remember the whole point of this exercise is to check for extraneous solutions. So that's what we do. Nope, not there. Here. Okay, we check for extraneous solutions by taking both solutions and plugging them into the original equation, which is what I've done on the right side. Here's my original equation, the square root of x plus 7 minus 5 equals x. My first solution is negative 6. I plug that one in, I get negative 6 plus 7 gives me 1. 1 take away 5 is equal to x, which is negative 6. The square root of 1 is 1. 1 minus 5 is equal to negative 6. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. Negative 4 does not equal negative 6. Therefore, negative 6 is not an actual solution. Go over to negative 3. Now you can conclude that since the first one is not a solution, this one is probably going to be a solution, but you want to check it anyway in case you made a math mistake. Because if you get that neither one is a solution, it means you've made a mistake. So here too, I'm going to plug in the value, which is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4. So I have the square root of 4. Take away 5 is equal to x, which is negative 3. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 take away 5 is negative 3. 2 take away 5 is negative 3. Negative 3 is equal to negative 3. This one checks. This one is a solution. So negative 6 is not, and negative 3 is. Now it is possible that both numbers will be solutions, but it's not, I don't believe you'll ever have a case where neither number is a solution. So that's why I'm saying if you check When you check, if you get two non-solutions, it most likely means you've made a math mistake somewhere in the problem. Go back and double check. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm like confused on how you figured out which one was a solution or not.
Like why?
If-
Like where'd you get like 1 and 5 and 4 and 5 and like why?
If when you plug the values in, the equation makes sense.
Which
What? The values that you just spent all that time getting, the ones from the previous page, the -6 and the -3.
Yeah, and then like why does you do like the square root of 1 and -5 and you do the
Because
square
you're-
root of
Laura?
Yeah.
You're plugging in -6. So I do -6 plus 7. What is -6 plus 7? 1.
Okay.
Over here, what is -3 plus 7? 4.
Okay.
That's where the numbers come from.
and then the
Okay.
And then the rest of the problem comes from the rest of the problem.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? That was a good question, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions.